Hi Willow Class parents, so I'm here to talk to you about the Year 4 residential trip to PGL. So we first ran this trip last year with Maple Class, and I went with them as they were my class then, along with Miss Colbeck and Mr Morris and Mrs Townsend, and we had the best time ever. So we're really excited to be able to have rebooked this trip for Willow Class for next year. So here's all the important information that you need to know. We'll be visiting PGL in Liddington. It's near Swindon, it's not too far away. It feels just far away enough that we've gone on an adventure without it feeling like we're so far from home. Liddington is one of the flagship sites of PGL. It's enormous, it's really well equipped, it's really well staffed as well. So it's a wonderful place. If you check out their website, you can do whole on-site maps and you can look around and find out lots more information about that particular site. So here are the important details that you guys as parents need to know. The trip is from Wednesday 23rd of June to Friday 25th of June. So it's 3 school days, but 2 nights away. So we leave school on the Wednesday morning, we travel by coach, we start our activities at lunchtime on the Wednesday, and then we run right through and we'll be back by the end of the school day on the Friday. Cost is £338 per child. That includes all their accommodation, all their food, which there is a lot of food, all their activities, all the staff that are required. It also covers all their insurance and all the transport to and from the place as well. So the first deposit of £32 is due on the 1st of September. All the payments will be set up on Schools Buddy so that you can see what's coming and when. In previous years, we had done a monthly instalment payment plan throughout the year, but to give you a bit more flexibility over your budgeting, we've decided just to have 2 further payments points set for you really, and those are in line with when we have to pay invoices to PGL. So we're not just taking your money and holding on to it. We literally, those deadlines are because we then have to outlay the money to PGL. So you would pay your initial deposit of £32 by the 1st of September. That's to secure your place, and that then you have 2 payments, one at the 31st of October and one at the 31st of March. Okay, so this is a bird's eye view of the Liddington site. It's a 150-acre site. It's got all a range of activities, water-based, sports activities. It's got woodland areas. It's one of the sites that's big enough to make sure that you're not on top of each other when there are other groups using the facilities, that you can spread out and really make sure that your group are contained and not mixing so much with other school groups. But also, it's small enough that it's manageable. You can walk around in one day. It's not too far. It's not miles for each activity. And the accommodation is very central. So if you have a look here, you can see on the map the little fountain area. That's the main entrance, and that building behind the main fountain area is where the main entrance is. And then all the buildings behind that are a combination of activity rooms and accommodation. There's a massive big lake as well, which is really lovely. In fact, there's 2 lakes for water-based activities. All the activities happen on site, which for some of the PGL sites, which are smaller, they have to bus you off site to an outside location, which PGL rent for their activities, which it's not ideal. So this gives us everything in one place, which is great. So there is a huge range of activities that you can do at PGL, and the joy of it is that we let the children have some say in what kind of activities they want to do, and us having been there now, we've got an idea of what those activities entail, and we can make sure that we've got a mixture of activities for the children to do. But rest assured, it is an action-packed trip. There's no sitting around, there's not a lot of downtime. They are exhausted by the end of it. But there's a huge range of activities. Health and safety is so important to PGL, and that's one of the reasons why we book PGL, because they're a trusted, well-established company. They have really high levels of safety. They have huge numbers of staff as well. There are staff everywhere, and that is brilliant because that means that there's staff monitoring the staff running activities. So every activity will have 1 member of PGL staff at least to a group of 10 children. And then they have sort of supervising teams who would go around and they monitor the health and safety, they monitor the engagement of their staff with the children. They do observations of their staff to make sure that there's really, really top-notch high quality the whole time. And their staff are phenomenal. So that's part of what we're paying a premium for, to make sure that we get a really high class, outstanding experience while we're there. So food, when we took Maple Class, was the highlight of the day. And believe me, the children get so hungry because they are so busy. But they have a wonderful big canteen, and it's really well organised that you have a set time that you go in. We get taken by a member of staff. So we would have a group leader assigned to our class, and they basically take us to all the different places that we need to be and make sure we're in the right place at the right time. And they guide us through our meal times. So they have hot breakfast, cold breakfast, they have fruit, there's vegetarian options, and all special dietary requirements are catered for. Then they have hot lunch as well, and then a main meal in the evening, and there's different meals on offer every day. And the children can basically help themselves to a salad bar, to fruit, fresh fruits. They can have as much to drink as they want to. But the food is brilliant. It's one of the best things about it. And what was lovely when we took Maple Class was that often you'd see the children trying new foods that they wouldn't necessarily have tried before, just because they were in a new environment, their friends were there. And definitely it was one of the highlights of the day. And it's a nice opportunity at the meal times for all the groups to come together and all the children to sort of talk to each other, because throughout their day, they're organised into groups of about 10. So they do their activities in their smaller groups, and then they come together at meal times, and you see this real buzz of them chatting about what they've done throughout the day. Maybe one group's done an activity that another group's going to do after lunch, and then they sort of get them all fired up and enthusiastic about it. So it's a really lovely social occasion as well. The accommodation looks quite basic in these photos, but the accommodation is one of the most exciting bits when the children get there. They just can't wait to see their room, to unpack. So they have accommodation of rooms of between 4 and 6 children in a room. All the rooms are en suite, but there's loads of really clever little things that you just wouldn't think of that make sense to make it safe and to avoid any disasters. So, for example, there's no baths, they all have showers, but there's no plug, so the children can't accidentally flood the bathroom. They each have their own bunk bed, and they have to be responsible for making their own bed. And then they have cubby holes where they can keep all their stuff. They tend to be, the girls' rooms were very, not wishing to be gender stereotypical, but the girls' rooms tended to be very organised, and they unpacked all their stuff. And the boys' rooms tended to just be a massive melting pot of socks and shoes all over the floor. But it's really nice that they have their own space. So what we tend to do is we would ask them to make a choice of a sort of top 3 children that they would like to share a room with. And then as the staff, we would go through and we would allocate rooms depending on a whole range of factors, but to try and make sure that they've got at least one of their choices in their room with them. The staff rooms, if you imagine we had a long corridor, like a university halls of residence or a hotel corridor. And the staff have rooms interspersed in between the children's rooms. So we would have one stretch of a corridor with a security door at either end, so the children can't do a run out and escape out the building. And the staff rooms are interspersed along the corridor in between, so that we can hear everything that's going on. We're not just down the end of the corridor out the way. And what staff tended to do was then sort of rotate around, take turns to be on the night shifts to make sure that they all got some sleep eventually and were all behaving. What tended to happen last year was the first night, they were so excited, they'd be up half the night, making loads of noise, having stories and playing games in their room. And then the second night, they were so exhausted, they'd be out like a light, they just couldn't maintain it. So here's some pictures of Maple Class in their activities last year, which were highlights were canoeing and raft building. We did abseiling, we did woodland walks, we did a whole range of stuff. It was fantastic, and it was really lovely to see the kids pushing themselves and trying new activities, taking themselves out of their comfort zone, working as a team, trusting each other, supporting each other, building their communication and confidence skills. It was a lovely kind of step towards getting ready for upper key stage 2, being a little bit more grown up, being a little bit more independent. It was great. And for some of these children, it was the first time they'd ever stayed away from home before. So to do that with their friends and with staff that they trusted was a kind of safe and comfortable way for them to do that. But for some of them, that was a completely new experience. There's some more pictures of us raft building, abseiling, doing assault courses. That was us on arrival. They were so happy and excited to be there. Some took an awful lot of luggage and some not so much. And I think a lot of them were changing outfits multiple times throughout the day, depending on what activity they were doing. So here's a little video just to show you of a couple of the activities. This is the giant swing activity where the children down the side, if you can see, are pulling the rope, and every time they pull the rope it pulls the swing further up, and then when the children on the swing are ready, they pull a release cord and let themselves swing. And for some children, that activity was a lovely leap of faith, that they were being brave. Some children were really gung-ho and just threw themselves into it. And what was lovely was the children sat at the bottom pulling the rope were encouraging and supporting and cheering their friends on, which was lovely. Okay, and here's another activity, this was a sensory trail. So we went in the woods and they all had blindfolds, so they couldn't see anything at all. And if you look closely, you see Mr. Morris is at the back here. They can't see anything at all. They're just relying on their senses and also their communication. The person at the front of the line is supposed to be communicating to the children further back what they can feel, where they think they are. And there's a member of the PGL staff there in the blue sweatshirt who is guiding them through and just monitoring what they're doing. So for some children, this was a real eye-opener in terms of their communication skills and building their trust in other people and supporting each other, working together. So basic itinerary. They'd wake up in the morning and often we'd have to drag them out of bed actually. Early start, up at 9 o'clock. You have a slot for breakfast, so it's up, get dressed, into breakfast, and then first activity would start at 9. So usually they would do 2 activities in the morning with a break in between. Then they'd have lunchtime, and that might be an opportunity where they need to go and get changed because they've done something wet or something muddy. Have lunch, have a bit of chill time, catch up with their friends and their group, and then 2 more activities in the afternoon. So on a full day, that would be 2 activities in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, and then back to their room where they can get changed again, have a bit of chill time, and then off for dinner in the evening about 6 o'clock. And then there's no rest for the wicked then. So as soon as dinner's finished, it would be off to an evening activity, and the children got to choose before we went which activities they wanted to do. So we did a disco, we did a challenge, construction challenge. They can do campfires, they can do orienteering, they can do a talent show. There's a whole range of different activities that we can choose to do. And that lasts until 9 o'clock. And then by the time the evening activity is finished, they're either really, really hyper or really, really exhausted, somewhere in between. And then they go off to bed until the morning. So the first night, they're all really, really hyper and takes them ages to get to sleep. And the second night, they are so exhausted. as soon as their head hits the pillow at 9:30, they'll be out like a lark. And that is the end of our presentation. So nearer to the time, we will give you a bit more information about what activities the children have chosen and also what they need to pack, what they need to bring with us. And if you have any other questions in the meantime, you just need to email in and we will do our best to answer them. The thing to know really is that PGL is a wonderful experience for your children to really develop skills that we might not necessarily see in school. And what was lovely through having gone before, that seeing the class, the whole class sort of bonded very differently through the experience, that they came back having been through something together, much more of a tight-knit team, and all having learned new things about each other that they didn't necessarily know. And you would see children who would really shine in certain areas or certain experiences that they maybe didn't get the opportunity to in class, and they would surprise themselves and surprise their peers. And you'd think, oh, where did that come from? And it really helped to kind of see the whole class in a different light. But more importantly, it was a massive confidence builder for the children, that it really gave them so much that they wouldn't get just from being at school. So any other questions that you have about PGL, please let us know, drop us an email, and we will do our best to answer them. But I hope that Willow Class will be super excited to go. The thing to note also that's different for Willow Class is that Birch Class was supposed to go in June this year, but because of school closure, that was cancelled. So what we've actually managed to do is postpone Birch Class's booking. So Birch Class would be going at the same time as Willow Class. So there's positives and negatives of that. In an ideal world, we would keep the two classes separately and they would have their own bespoke special trip. But we didn't want Birch Class to miss out with them having looked forward to it for so long. So from a staffing and logistics point of view, it's much easier to combine the two classes and take them both at the same time than it is to take them at different points throughout the year. So we would be taking with us 6 members of staff for the two classes. But what we would make sure is that actually that they'd be very separate throughout the day. So the groupings of the children doing the activities wouldn't be mixed across the classes. The accommodation wouldn't be mixed across the classes. They would be within their own class groups for those. We'd take some staff from each class so that they have some familiar staffing with them as much as we possibly can. But actually we think it's just going to add to the excitement of it when there's, so it'd be year 4 and year 5 going together. We think that's going to be a really exciting opportunity. And in all likelihood, they would do different activities throughout the day as well. So it's a different approach, but it's the best that we could do under the circumstances. It seemed like the fairest compromise for both classes to still have that opportunity. Right, well, thank you very much for listening, and we can't wait to see you at PGL.